All right, let's start by solving this medium problem. It's called can convert string in k moves. I shared the link in chat. Given two strings s and t, your goal is to convert s into t in k moves or less. This is usually important. During the ith move, which is one indexed, you can choose any index j from s. So yes, you choose a character of s and that has not been chosen in any previous move, and shift the character at that index I times. Okay, so the number of shifts that you apply to the character is given by the number of move. And you can always choose to do nothing. Interesting. Hello, Smart Coder. Thanks for joining. So shifting, well, here we get the definition of shifting, but I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but we are wrapping around so that C becomes A. And yes, and we compound that operation I times. And here we get a reminder. This is very kind of the problem setter. You can only choose once. Return true if it's possible to convert s into t in no more than k moves, otherwise return false. All right. We get 2, 3 examples, 2 where we can and 1 where we cannot. So the strings are up to 100,000, 10 to the 5 characters each. And yeah, one first observation, and they are only lowercase English letters. And k can be big, it's up to 10 to the 9. So that's interesting as well. So yeah, the first observation right off the bat is that they don't have to be the same length, apparently. I mean, in the examples they are, but the constraint doesn't say that they cannot. And we are only making changes to the characters. We don't add or remove characters. So if they are not the same length, we cannot do it. So let's start by coding that. Why not? So if the lengths are different, then we cannot do it. All right. First step done. Wow, that k is big. Yeah, 10 to the 9. So that means it's like doing the operations one by one is out of the question. In this problem, we gotta be clever. You cannot do 10 to the 9 operations usually in LeetCode problems because it would take several seconds usually, which is more than the time limit. Okay, so what other observations can we make here? Well, the order of the letters doesn't really matter because we are changing each of them independently, and we are required to make them all equal. So it doesn't matter the order in which they are. So that's one observation. I mean, that means that the input is over-specified in some sense. It has more information that is needed to make the decision of whether the conversion is possible. So let's try to do some representation change, some transformation of the input so that we drop every information that is irrelevant. So one is the order. The order doesn't matter. What else can we do? We also don't care about S and T. We only care about how many shifts we have to do for each position, right? It doesn't matter if, for example, we have an A and a V in some position, like an A in S and a B in T. That means that we need exactly one shift in that position. But if in another position we have a C and a D in T, we also need to do one shift, exactly one shift. So those are equivalent for our purposes. So that's an interesting observation. So, and the number of shifts we know that have to be at most, since this is wrapping around, they will be at most, they will be between 0 and 25 inclusive. I mean, if you do 26 shifts, you end up doing a whole turn, so it doesn't make sense. I mean, it does make sense, yeah, let me clarify that. It does make sense because K is going to be a big number, and you might need to do many turns, but essentially what you care about is the remainder of the I here when you do an operation, because all the turns, all the shifts that are multiples of 26 end up at the same place. Okay, so the point is that the number of shifts that we need modulo 26 are going to be between 0 and 25 inclusive. So that means that we could represent all the information of S and T as a multiset of these reminders. Okay, so let's do that as well. Also, the ones that are already the same we can ignore, because we don't have to. It's the same as if they were not there, because we are not forced. We can do nothing. We are not forced to choose them. So in Python, a multi-set is just a counter. So let's go over, yeah, for simplicity, I'm going to be using the zip function so that we can process each corresponding character between S and T. If you don't have the zip function, this is just making a list of pairs of the corresponding characters. You can use indices, it doesn't matter. And like I said, we want to skip them if they are the same. We just want the ones that are different. And now we want to know the remainder of the number of shifts that we need to do. And so these are letters. We can turn them into numbers by using the orth function in Python. And this is going to give us the difference between character B and A. And this is assuming that B is greater than A. If B is greater than A, there you're obviously going to get the number of shifts that you need. But what happens if that's not the case? What happens if B is less than A? In that case, we are going to get the distance, but in the other direction, from A going to the wrong direction, okay? But we cannot move on that direction. We have to move. Let me draw it here. So you can always think about modular arithmetic in terms of circles. Like, you have a circle, here's the, let's say here's the 0, this is, which is congruent to or equivalent to 26, and this is 13. So we said, what happens if B is here and A is here? So we need to move this way. This is what the problem tells us. But when we do the difference, we're going to get a negative number, which means that we're moving this way, in the opposite direction, the negative direction. But this is exactly the amount that we do not want to move, but that we do not need to move. So all we have to do is add 26 to the negative number, and in that case we're gonna get the whole distance in the right direction. However, we don't want to do two cases, and when you do the mod, that is exactly what this is going to do. When B is greater than A, like we said, we are going to have already a number between 0 and 25 inclusive, so the modulus doesn't do anything. But if we get a negative number, this is going to be equivalent to adding 26, which is what we discussed here. So this should work. I'm going very I'm doing deep detailed explanations just to make sure that we cover, like I'm saying in the title, I want to break it down into easy pieces. Yeah, that's a good example. The one, yes, if you have, for example, if A is B and B is A, well, those are not great examples because I'm confusing the name of the variables with the letters, but I guess you can follow. In that case, yes, you get -1 here, but then when you compute the modulus, you get 25. Be careful, because in some languages, when you do the modulus operation with negative numbers, it's not exactly the remainder. It doesn't always give you a number between 0 and 25 inclusive in this case, and that means that maybe you'll have to add 26 here just to make sure that this is not negative. But in Python it does work as expected, so that's good. Okay, so these are the distances, let's call them, and in a counter, and this is pretty small now. The strings were large, they were like we said, 10 to the 5 characters. But this is small. This is at most 26, or even less, because we're not adding 0. So it's actually up to 25. So we're making progress. We have transformed the input in the essential information, and we dropped all the things that don't matter, and we ended up with a very small things. We could say this is constant size because it depends only on the size of the alphabet, which we can consider it constant. So we're close. Now we need to actually do the operations, okay? So we're going to be solving each distance separately, okay? So let's iterate the distances. Let's call it d, and we're going to have a count for how many there are in these items. And yes, that's, or let's say this is how many we need. We need those many D shifts modulo 26, but we need to know how many we have. Okay, we need to have at least what we need. Okay, and this has to be for all the distances. It has to be true. So we use the all function in Python. So in terms of code, this means that what we need has to be less than or equal what we have. What we have, how many we have of the D distance. How will we compute that? And that depends on K. We're gonna have operations for 1, 2, 3, and so on up to K inclusive. We want to know how many of those are equivalent to D, okay, or are equal to D mod 26. And bear with me here. This is going to be this. I'm going to explain why in a moment. But it does work. And it does solve it. It's 96% of users with Python 3. That's good. Okay, so let's go again with the circles. I like the circles. So we broke down the problem into knowing how many times we have the D reminder in the set of numbers from 1 to K inclusive. So like we said, this is 0, which is the same as 26. This is 13. Let's say that K is right here. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that K can be a big number like we saw. So it means you make one turn, that's 26, another turn, so on and so on and so on. Maybe it's even close to a billion, so those are a lot of turns. And in the end, you drop here. That means that this is the reminder of K divided by 26. So what we want to know is that for this d variable that we have, this distance, we want to we know that all the complete terms that we did with k contain, each of them contain one d, and we want to know what happens in the last, in the incomplete term. And here, if d is here, then we're going to have one more occurrence, okay, because we cross this distance with k. But if d is here, well, this is not pretty, but if d is here, then we're not going to count one extra occurrence of any of those d's. So what I did was to make an adjustment of on k, add something to k, so that something that is relative to this d, so that after this adjustment, for any d in the blue side, in the blue range, k is going to make another, it's going to complete another term. And for any of the d's in the red side, it is not going to complete another term. And it's a way of rounding up, but only for the d's that are on this range. Okay, and what so let's say that this is long, but I think it's worth it because it's useful to think about modulus in other problems as well. So let's say that d is here, and what if we add whatever d needs to get to 26, which is in this case this. Well, if we add this to k, that means that for any of the red, of these in red, k is not going to, after this adjustment, is not going to make one more term, okay? Because for all of this, what we are going to add to k is not going to make it. It's not enough to do another term. However, if it is here, if d is here, and we add all of this, then of course k is going to make one more term. So that is the idea behind this formula. We are adding this, which is how much d needs to get to a full term. We add this to k, and that means that we're gonna get one more occurrence of d for the d's in the blue range. And that's it. That's the whole thing. I think it's pretty simple. We use these concepts of needing, having. We transform the input. This is like a lossy compression. We're dropping all the information that is irrelevant to decide whether we can transform S into T. We simplify this operation of finding how many shifts modulo 26 we need. We identify this edge case, which is kind of a trap in this problem, I think, because you don't have an example for it. And that is all. I have and the answer was pretty fast. So yeah, that is all I have. Let me share the code in case you're interested. So, and yes, and we learned to think about modular arithmetic in terms of circles. This is actually a useful way, if you think about it, when you have number systems like 2's complement, or you have a fixed number of bits to represent numbers like you do in computers, not exactly in Python, the overflow is similar to doing mod. So you can also think it in these terms, but that's something for another lesson. So I'm gonna end the stream now, but I'm gonna do another one in a moment. Can you explain why example 2 is false? Yes, of course. Example 2, ABC. Let's work it out. A, B, C, and BCD, and K is 10. So let's do our algorithm. Here we have this. So this is S, and this is T. So here we have one shift. Here we have one shift. And here we have one shift. Okay, and so we transform this to a set where 1 appears 3 times. Okay, so but we have how many? We have operation 1, 2, and so on up to 10. But so we need exactly one shift for each of the characters, but we only have one here. Okay, that's why any of the other operations, 2, 3, or 10, are not equivalent to 1. The one that would be equivalent to 1 would be 27, right? Because that means that you do a full turn plus one shift, because this is congruent to 1 modulo 26. And then you have 53, I think. It's congruent to 126. So that means that for any k less than 53, you're not going to make it. But for 53, it has to be true. Let's try it out. Here, case 2. Even if we increase this to 54, it should still be false. Yeah, accepted because... Yeah, accepted, but it's false. Yeah, like we expected. But if we turn it into 53, then the answer should be true. Yeah, exactly. Got it? Great. Great. Do you have any other questions? I'm happy to work them out. So yeah, Smart Coder. I was saying that I want to do another stream to eat today after dinner. And I'm going to explain segment 3. I remember that you were interested. Maybe you already studied it, but maybe my take on it is useful to you. I'm gonna say things that I haven't found in other sources, so maybe it's useful. Yeah, great. So yeah, I'll do that in an hour or two. So yes, let's keep it up. So thanks a lot for the support, and see you later. Bye bye.